Hey guys, we are on day 139 in our Bible reading plan, and today we're reading in the book of 2 Samuel. We're reading chapters 19, 20, and 21. So we pick up the account after David's son Absalom has died, and in chapter 19 we read that David is grief-stricken. He's mourning, he's lamenting, he is very grievous, and he's mourning publicly in front of all of his men, and just as he had done at hearing the news of the death of Saul. This isn't new to us, the reader, that David would mourn the death of an enemy or the death of someone who has come against him. He does this over and over and over again, but the outcome this time is going to be a little bit different. And we're going to see a lot of that in chapter 19, that David continues to act like David. He continues to do the things that he's done before, but the people's response to him is going to be very different here. So in this case, he's mourning his son, and Joab ends up coming to him and says, hey, look, you got to cut it out. The men are discouraged. Everyone is discouraged about this victory. This day of victory has turned into a day of mourning, and if you do not go out to your men, you're going to lose all of your support. David does. He goes out, he addresses his men, and then you see David doing some of the things he did before he becomes king. He rewards people for their loyalty. He recognizes people who have helped him along the road. He recognizes Ziba. He brings back Mephibosheth again. Mephibosheth, denies that he was waiting to be king, sort of. He says, oh, I just couldn't leave. And David restores half of Saul's possessions back to him, and Mephibosheth says, no, he refuses to take it. Ziba is rewarded for his loyalty. People who have helped David along the way are being rewarded. David comes all the way back to the Jordan River. He calls on the men of Judah. If you'll remember, before David was anointed king in Jerusalem, he was anointed king over Judah. He does the same thing here. He calls the men of his own clan together to help him cross the river and to go into Jerusalem. He goes into Jerusalem, and the people of Jerusalem get upset. Israel is upset with David for calling Judah. And so the things that David did before are not producing the same results this time around in this account. And so we get this very distinct feeling that there is something that is going to be different about David being king here. And even in his return to Jerusalem, we read that now there's division among the tribes, that all of Israel is not united and all in support of David. In chapter 20, we're going to read about Sheba the Benjamite, who's going to capitalize on this disunity, and he's going to go all through Israel, summoning people to his cause and his side to rise up against David. And so David is going to send Amasa to summon the men of Judah to come to him and to come to his aid. In chapter 19, David appointed Amasa to serve as commander in Joab's place. Joab's still on the scene though. Amasa is long in coming. He takes a long time to get everybody back to David. So David sends out Abishai with Joab's men to go in pursuit of Sheba. Amasa meets them along the way with the men of Judah, and Joab kills him on the road and rallies all of the troops to follow him and to follow David. And they continue on in their pursuit of Sheba. Sheba has amassed a number of troops and men. He comes to a city called Abel Beth Maacah, where David's troops, Joab leading them, lay siege to that city, traps Sheba there. And as they're battering down the city gates and walls and attacking the city, the people of the city send a messenger to inquire what's going on. They tell them, hey, if you just send out Sheba, this whole thing is over. And so the people of the town kill Sheba. They send his head over the wall. And that's the end of the siege to that city, and it's the end of Sheba and his uprising. Chapter 20 ends with this about Joab. It says, Joab was over Israel's entire army. Benaiah, son of Jehoiada, was over the Kirithites and Pelethites. Adoniram was in charge of forced labor. Jehoshaphat, son of Ahilud, was recorder. Shiva was secretary. Zadok, Abiathar were priests, and Ira the Jerite was David's priest. And so we have the sense that David has been restored, his kingdom has been restored, his cabinet is in place. And then we read in chapter 21 about a famine that has come on the land. The famine has been on the land for 3 years. And so David, it says that he seeks the face of the Lord. And the Lord tells him that this famine is being caused because of what Saul did to the Gibeonites. And so David asks the Gibeonites, what can be done to make atonement, to make this right, what Saul has done to you? And they ask in in restitution, they ask that they be given 7 male descendants of Saul to be killed and exposed. And after they've done this, one of Saul's descendants, Rizpah, is mourning every day. She goes, she cares and covers the body. And when David hears of this, he gathers all of the remains of these men, as well as the remains of Saul and Jonathan, and properly buries them together. And then once David has done this, the famine comes to an end. And then we continue reading, and we read about the Philistines and David's men going to war with them. David's no longer going to be going to war, we read. His men are going to be doing the fighting for him, and they are going to go up against the Philistines again. And we read the accounts of their victories and their battles over some of the mightiest of the Philistines. And so we have this sense that this is now going to be different. David's kingdom, his reign is going to be different. The unity and prosperity that was David's before, that sort of characterized all of the people coming together to make him king. We're no longer seeing that unity in Israel. We're reading about Judah and Israel. We're seeing that there's disunity there. We're also reading that things are not as peaceful in the land, that there's not this sense of favor over his kingship any longer. And so as I was reading this, I was just considering this moment that David comes to the Lord. It says after 3 years of famine, it says that David sought the face of the Lord, and the Lord answers him and tells him. And so while we're seeing that things are going to be different, that the Lord's judgment has come, God is still willing to meet David. He's still willing to meet with him. He's still willing to provide and to answer him. He's still willing to take care of his people. And I think that so many times when we make mistakes, we forget that about God, that even though we might experience hardship from what we've done, that God is still willing to meet us. He's still willing to show up and meet with us and talk with us and provide for our needs. I just want to encourage you today, no matter what is going on in your life, no matter how hard things seem, no matter if it seems like everything and everyone is against you, God is still for you. Just like he was still for David. He was still willing to meet David right where he was needed, right where David needed him in that moment. And he's still willing to do that with us today. I hope that encourages you. Have a great day. And I'd love to hear what you thought and what the Lord is speaking to you through this reading today.